welcome to this broadcast of It Matters Radio. I'm Monica Brinkman, and I'm your host for this evening. Joining me is our musical co host, Carrie Hall, and
Hello.
Kenneth Ween. Kenneth has
Hi.
joined us again today, and I'm so pleased he has. And Carrie, could you please introduce our guest?
My pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, and viewers. This is Winston Apple. He is a singer, a songwriter, a recording artist, audio and video, author, and political activist. And we're going to kind of touch mostly on the music today. But my first question is, you started out as a drummer. Talk a little bit about that and going into your other music.
I really stumbled into music by accident because two of my friends got guitars and started taking lessons. They wanted to form a band and they couldn't find a drummer, and they knew I liked music. So they asked me if I would get some drums and join them, and I did.
Very cool. And this led you, according to your bio, to keyboards and then guitar. Did you sort of
Yes.
go from that?
We had a piano around the house. My mom tried to learn to play it, never really got too far, and it was just sitting there. And as my interest in songwriting began to develop, well, first of all, we had a trio with guitar, sax, and drums. Our guitar player could not remember lyrics, and the sax player usually had a saxophone in his mouth. So by default, I became the singer, and I found I enjoyed singing the most. And especially once my interest in songwriting developed, while I didn't mind a bit being a singing drummer, I found for songwriting, learning to play the piano and the guitar were very helpful.
Yes, indeed, indeed. So you had a song that came out, and it was called Shoot 'em Up Cowboy. And apparently it went to some very interesting heights. Talk a little bit about that for us.
Well, I wrote that song with an acoustic guitar sitting by a stream in Rocky Mountain National Park.
Nice.
And I almost never played it for anyone because it was a very political song, and that wasn't real popular in the mid-'70s. And I'm glad that I did play it for a couple of people, because one of them was an investor in the production company I had, who insisted that that be one of the 4 songs we recorded when we did a demo in Nashville. And I, with Chuck Lackner, a good friend of mine now, who was a promo man for Warner Brothers Elektra Asylum back then, recommended me to Monument Records and Monument Records to me. And about halfway through the first chorus of Shoot 'em Up Cowboy, they offered me a recording contract.
Wow. So things sort of fell apart for Monument. Do you know what the story was there? Because then you went on to another production company or music company.
Yes, Monument Records, and I really loved being with them. Fred Foster was the owner. It was one of the few one-person owner labels left in the mid-'70s. And it was and is a wonderful man and was really, really great to work with. They did not release Shoot 'em Up Cowboy as the first single because the word cowboy was in the title, and they had pretty much become a country label at that point and signed me to help them move to the pop and rock charts. And so by the time they released Shoot 'em Up Cowboy, shortly after they released it, they lost their distribution deal with Phonogram, and it was no longer being promoted or available or anything else. Had I left the word cowboy out and had they released it first, I might at least be a one-hit wonder at this point. Some people tell me I am a one-hit wonder, but everyone wonders what the hit was.
Well, you know, Winston, you won or actually you are placed in the Kansas Music Hall of Fame. Is that correct? You got
Yes.
that in 2015. Talk a little bit about that, because that's pretty spectacular, at least for me anyway.
Well, it was a lot of fun. When at the induction ceremony, they do a concert. The night before the induction ceremony and the concert, they do an acoustic show. And so I performed a solo at the acoustic show. I was very flattered that one of the people that was there came up after my set and expressed disappointment that I had not performed Taking the Easy Way Out, which was another song off the Monument album. And I told him that if they would let me go back up after the last set, before they started the jam, that I would do it for him. And I talked a saxophone player into playing with me and taking a solo. And as I played it that night, I noticed this guy that had requested it standing at the bar singing along with every word, every verse, every chorus from 1978, which was very flattering, but I did check the rearview mirror on the way home that night.
I don't blame you.
That's very right. That's very exciting. So 1985 rolls around, and you sort of did a kind of a 360-degree switch. You went into teaching. Talk a little bit about why. And
I smelled bridges burning when I signed the contract with Monument Records. I knew that I could not go back to doing cover songs in bars. And frankly, I didn't think at that point I could ever go back to cover songs, although that's proven to not be the case. But when Monument lost their distribution deal, I went out to LA, and I had talks before I signed with Monument with a couple other labels, and was going to look around and maybe try to get a deal with somebody else. And I got a knock on the door one day and a certified letter that I signed for, and Monument had renewed my contract. And they kept renewing it for several years after that and paid me to stay home and write songs. And at one point I had 72 songs written for the next album. And that was back when you couldn't fit even more than about 10 on an album. And then it became obvious they weren't going to get another distribution deal. And I had a chance to record with a label called Mad Dog Records. And went out to LA and recorded 4 songs, and they ran out of money. So I came home, and I finally figured out the owner of the label really was in Kansas City and wanted to be able to attend the sessions, but had other businesses and couldn't go to LA. So I said, we can record in Kansas City, and I actually had a great time. I recorded 3 songs with the rhythm section of a group called Blue Rhythm, which was a really good reggae band that was on Flying Fish Records for a while. And I also recorded 4 songs with 3 of my friends who were in a group called Shooting Star that had a number of albums out in the 70s and into the 80s. And then they went totally bankrupt before we could get any of those finally mixed. So those all sat around from 1980 and 81 until I got back into music in 1999. And then I used the new digital technology to take what we had and add a few tracks and do a final mix.
Wow. So teaching,
the teaching came up. Yeah, the teaching came up after Mad Dog Records went bankrupt. And rather than go back to playing cover songs in bars, I decided to substitute teach. And when I called up to substitute teach, they noticed I'd gotten my degree and had a lifetime teaching certificate. And the Kansas City, Missouri School District is always desperate for teachers. So they pretty much offered me a job on the phone. And since I had sold my piano that month to pay the rent, I took them up on the offer. Right. And thoroughly enjoyed teaching. I taught for 21 years at my old alma mater. Was a wonderful experience. Fred Foster told me when I told him that I was going to do that I had too much talent as a songwriter to waste my life teaching high school. But I didn't think it was a waste at all. And honestly, I felt I was a better teacher than I was a songwriter. Not that I'm a bad songwriter, but I thought I was a really good teacher, and I really enjoyed teaching.
What did you teach?
Yeah.
I taught, this may not surprise you, I taught government and economics.
Okay.
And,
so was it teaching that got you into your political activism, or have you always been a political activist? And while we're talking about that, you also had a couple of, or founded a couple of nonprofit activist organizations.
I've been throwing everything I can at the world trying to change it most of my life. And so far I'm finding that politics may be working the best, actually running for office. But I lost an election on Tuesday and won an election on Tuesday. I was running for committee man here in Blue 7 and also for lieutenant governor in Missouri, and I lost the big one but won the smaller one.
I
Was
voted
also
for him. I voted for
all
you.
right.
My husband
Thank
voted
you.
for you.
And Punky voted for him too, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But I can tell I was also elected to the Democratic National Committee back in June at our state convention. And I suspect that I may do some good if I just keep hammering away at it. But I do like to overlap the things. I've absolutely loved the last couple of years performing at marches and rallies. It was really early Bob Dylan and Woody Guthrie that inspired me to write political songs.
Mm-hmm.
I have always been in awe of Bob Dylan's ability. When you write political songs, it's a dangerous tightrope to walk out on because it's very easy to sound preachy or stupid or both. And I hope I've avoided that. I've worked hard to avoid that. But Bob Dylan's a really good example to follow, a good role model for that.
You
Absolutely.
left my friend Pete Seeger out of that mix.
Pete's okay. Woody and Bob. I have to tell you, I ran for office the first time 2 years ago. I ran for a seat in the Missouri House. And I decided to finally run for office after thinking about it most of my life because of the climate crisis. I realized the obstacles to doing something about that were political in nature and that we had to vote the obstructionist out of office. And to do that, you needed people to run against them. The hardest decision about running for office was I figured I would have to put music on the back burner, and I really don't like to put music on the back burner.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided it was important enough, and I put music on the back burner, and I went to Jefferson City and filed to run for office. And 3 days later, the Muse decided to show me who was boss. And instead of getting my campaign off to a fast start, I wrote 8 songs in 6 days.
Wow. Cool.
And I, more than ever before, there's a lot of different feelings that come along when you're writing songs. Sometimes you just sit down and say, I want to write a song, and you kind of use the skill set you've got and put together something. Sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night and there's a song already going. Might be having a dream where I'm in the studio singing or performing a song somewhere, and I wake up and realize I've never heard that song before by me or anybody else. And I always get up at that point and do some sort of rudimentary recording of it. It's a very interesting phenomenon, at least for me. A day or two later, when I go back and listen to those tapes, it's usually either very good or very bad. There's never anything in between. And, but,
we all, I think, all of us
Yes.
write or create, do that. I know I do as a writer, and it's always the same. It's either the best stuff you've ever written or created, or absolute garbage.
yeah. I understand Keith Richards came up with the signature line for Can't Get No Satisfaction That Way. And he heard it as a horn part. But at any rate, right after that, the 8 songs in 6 days, I have never felt so strongly that I was just taking dictation. The songs were just coming fast and furious, and I was literally struggling to get enough sleep at night just to keep up with writing down and honing them. At one point, it was one song that was about 30 minutes long, and I knew even Bob Dylan probably couldn't get away with that. So I broke it up into chunks, but I can tell you I felt so strongly that I was channeling early Bob Dylan and Woody Guthrie. And this was a totally new type of music for me, and it wasn't any conscious decision I made. It was just what I heard and the way I heard it. I've always been terrified playing alone. I never liked to play solo. And all of a sudden, I loved it. I was very happy to go anywhere, including on the radio live with my acoustic guitar. And I'm far from the world's greatest acoustic guitarist, but and I learned to play harmonica a long time ago too. I came across a video that said you can learn to play harmonica in 1 hour, and I thought, well, I could devote an hour to that. And I'm not much better than I was at the end of that hour, but I have fun throwing the harmonica in on stuff too. But it was an amazing experience. It really was a peak experience for me as a songwriter, to just feel so powerfully that I was just an instrument being used to write these songs.
And you have some great songs, Winston.
Thank you.
Is there a favorite of your songs that you've written? I know you've written lots. What is there a favorite one that sticks out in your mind, and why?
Well, Taking the Easy Way Out is pretty good. I don't disagree with the guy at the acoustic show in Lawrence. It's one of those songs where, considering my ability level on the keyboards back then, I have to think I got some help writing that one too, because it's a more complex musical piece than I would have thought myself capable of then, possibly even now. And the lyrics were intentionally ambiguous. It was written, and this was another really interesting songwriting experience. I did the 4-song demo in Nashville in August of 1977. Monument was immediately interested, and I signed with them in November. Then we went in the studio in January, and between November and January, I wrote, I think, 4 or 5 of the 10 songs on that album, including Taking the Easy Way Out. And it was very much about what I was feeling at that point and all the things I was experiencing. It was a very strange experience to sign a recording contract after trying to get one for over 10 years.
I can imagine.
And
what I'd like to do right now is take a little break, and we're going to play at least one, or if not 2, of your wonderful songs. And then we're going to come back and chat with you some more. So
Okay.
Here you go, folks.
Temperatures are rising, sea levels rising too. Coastal cities and island nations about to get the Venice blues. The stakes are getting higher, the future's on the line. And the sands of time are running out, we're running out of time. Our air has been polluted, city air's not fit to breathe. And our water's been polluted, much of it not fit to drink. Predictions have been made, predictions have come true. But when the truth is inconvenient, many turn away from truth. The problems we are facing must be faced. Let's make the world a better place and save the human race. We've got to get moving, we can't afford to run in place. With or without the deniers, we've got a world to save. Those who refuse to understand are not about to change their minds. Their heads are buried in the sand and we are running out of time. The problems we are facing must be faced. Let's make the world a better place and save the human race. We may never know the outcome of the battles we have fought, but they are fine and worthy battles, even if it's all for naught. We're talking about our own grandchildren, great, 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 great. For each passing generation, a worse and worse fate. We can't afford to let them down. We've got to change our ways. We've got to make the world a better place and save the human race. There is no way for us to know for sure if we've passed the point of no return. But with every day that passes, with us continuing to burn, all of the coal and all the oil that we can dig out of the ground, our chances of survival are going down and down. Knowing that we tried our best may be our saving grace, and we may yet make the world a better place and save the human race. If the human race goes missing, it won't be without a trace. Our asphalt and our concrete, even our bones will remain. Mother Earth won't really notice the scars we've left upon her face. With us or without us, she'll go on spinning her way through space. If we fail in our efforts to save the human race, there will be no one left to shed a tear, so it may not be a crying shame. As the last of us gives up the ghost, with no one left to dig a grave, there will be plenty of blame to go around, but no one left to blame. It's time for a revolution, one that is peaceful and joyous and democratic through and through. We will use ballots instead of bullets, and our aim will be true. We will rein in the power of the masters of disaster. We will counter their lies with our devotion to truth. We will keep loving our hearts when they spew venom and hate. They may go on sowing fear, but we will not be afraid. Once we realize that We're all in this together. We must come together as one. We can't let them divide us. We must remain united, for the struggle we are in is never one and done. It goes on and on forever. We've been misled and misrepresented by the representatives that we keep electing. They seem content to serve the interests of their wealthy benefactors. They are snug in the pockets of their corporate masters. How much longer will you give them your votes? I'm not voting for these corporate lackeys anymore. I've got much better things to do with my vote. I won't get fooled again, and I'm not giving up hope, because I know that we're all in this together. We must come together as one. We can't let them divide us. We must remain united, for the struggle we are in is never one and done. It goes on and on forever. Citizens, not citizens united. In union there is strength. We can win this fight. We must be joyous warriors for truth and for justice. It's the American way. Let me hear you say it. We're all in this together. We must come together as one. We can't let them divide us. We must remain united, for the struggle we are in is never one and done. It goes on and on forever. It goes on and on forever. It goes on and on forever. It goes on and on forever.
Heck, wasn't that great? I know, what talent. I
Great
just love it.
music, man.
I had one quick question. When we were last chatting with you before the music was played, you were saying that these songs just came to you. And do, are you putting that all into possibly something to help the world and the people? Is that you think the purpose of that, why that happened?
I don't know that I want to take on that burden, but
Right.
the lyrics. Well, I'll tell you a story. When I decided to run for lieutenant governor, which was a massive undertaking, and I honestly, I sort of knew all along that I was aiming pretty high and the chances of winning were pretty slim. And a big part of that was to raise awareness about some of the issues I care about. But the drummer that's been on my last two albums and is on the one I'm back to working on now after last Tuesday's election is a right-wing Republican from England. Used to play in the group Bad Manners, the English ska band. Very, very talented guy by the name of Steve DeFranco. Steph to his friends. And I knew that Steph was a Republican, but I asked him to contribute to my campaign financially anyway. And he said he would look at my website and make a decision there. But he said he had some advice for me, some political advice. And I sort of braced myself. And I thought, okay, here it comes, Rush Limbaugh incarnate. He said, He said, "You know this album we were working on before you decided to run for lieutenant governor?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "I listened to that 2 or 3 times a month to the stuff that we've already got done. And I played it for my wife on the way to St. Louis a couple of weeks ago." And he said, "These are really good songs, and they have a really good political message that's not left-wing or right-wing. It's just about what's going on and what we ought to be doing about it." And he said, "My advice is to finish this album and make it part of the campaign."
I was
And
going to ask you about that.
I did not manage to get it finished because the campaign was moving too fast, and that may be why I lost on Tuesday.
Oh.
See?
But you
Yes.
won musically. You won musically there. The music is fabulous, really.
Right. Thank you.
I'd like to. I know I'm probably blowing it out of the water here, but you're like a modern day Bob Dylan. You can't beat that.
Well, you cannot compliment me any better than that.
It's
Well, as you said in your song, we're all in this together,
Yes.
and we need music to march to.
Absolutely.
Music is a very big part of any kind of political movement.
And I am of the opinion that, blessed as we are with the ability to change our government with ballots instead of bullets, we don't have to get angry or upset. Fox News and talk radio and their crowd are taking care of the fear, anger, and hatred contingent very well. We can be joyous and kind and loving and open. We literally, and I will admit, I'm a child of the 60s. I'm a hippie with a haircut. But we can
I
go
didn't
right
get the
back.
haircut.
Yeah, I wouldn't either if I wasn't married to a woman who is coaching me that it's time to cut it shorter. It's thinning out a little bit on top, and that's the sartorial advice she's given me, and I've taken it. But I will say that I think that we should have a giant, nonstop, nonpartisan political party between now and November 8th. Sing, dance, be happy, and then on November 8th we should vote all the obstructionists out of office and replace them with people that will actually do the things that need to be done. Conveniently for me, as a newly elected member of the Democratic National Committee, the obstructionists are almost exclusively Republicans, and the people that might be willing to go back to Franklin Roosevelt's idea of a guaranteed job for every worker at a living wage, and Harry Truman's idea of universal health care, tend to be Democrats. So my advice, and the most recent song I'm working on that's not done, and it may never be done. It may be one of those where the political lyrics are too clunky, but it's called "Just Say No to the GOP."
I like it.
Oh, please.
Well,
write it.
now, let's not
On
take
that
sides, even though we all agree.
I'm also right next door to Kansas here.
Yes.
And for my friends in Kansas, I'm working on a song called "There Won't Be Nothing the Matter with Kansas Once Kansas Gets the Blues."
I like it.
A play on words, indeed.
Yes.
Very cool.
And luckily, we're not in Kansas anymore.
No, no. I do visit there occasionally. The studio where I do my mixing and a lot of my recording lately is in Kansas, but just barely. It's in the good part of Kansas.
It's one step over, right?
Yes,
So,
one step over the line.
I
Yeah.
understand that a lot of your political thinking and your ideas also are about education,
Yes,
and that you've actually written a book, is it? Have you written a book?
yes.
Yeah.
I wrote a book shortly before I retired from teaching called Edutopia, a
not gonna-
manifesto.
I'm going to ask you to not talk about that now, because
Right.
what I'd like to do, see, I'm the spoken word host,
Yes,
and I would love you to send me a copy of it so I can read it, and then have you on our second show one Sunday where we can talk about all of those ideas, because
Absolutely.
I think it'd be very interesting to talk about that with.
yes. Absolutely. I would love to do that.
That would be
Okay.
great.
Yeah, we could
Okay.
spend more time and get in depth about all the
Yeah,
ideas you had. So
yeah.
that
Right.
would be
Today we're
fantastic.
doing music, and
Today's
And I
music.
and I will just tell you the link there is very interesting. Um, Doing music is very easy. It comes very easy, and recording is a joy. Even when you're struggling to put a song together, the price of putting all the pieces in place is you play that song a few hundred times. And my dear wife suffers through that very well, especially the 8 songs in 6 days. I
uh,
was channeling Bob Dylan so thoroughly, and it was kind of a joke, but not completely, that when I would finish a song and she wasn't going to have to hear it anymore for a little while, although that turned out to be wrong because I just kept playing them for the fun of it. But I would say, "What do you think of them apples?"
Great name.
The book, on the other hand, is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. It's
uh,
very, very hard to get all those thoughts put
organized.
just yes, and put in
Mhm.
just the right order. And as a result, I feel a sense of accomplishment with the book. Uh,
Mhm.
I also made a profit on the book, and I've not ever made a profit on an album. So,
Seems to be the way it goes most of the
yeah,
That's too bad.
absolutely.
But of course, when you write a book, it costs a lot less to write a book.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
record an album, you have to have a studio, you have to have your backup musicians, you have
Yep.
to. Yeah.
Yes, there's
Speaking of
considerable
music,
more expense.
speaking
Yes.
of music, where can we find your music? And
Well,
go ahead.
WinstonApple.com will lead you into a lot of it. There's a lot of it up on YouTube, but the ultimate resource, and thank goodness for CDBaby.com. They sell CDs, downloads, individual or complete album downloads all over the world. As a result of that, I am once again an international recording artist, selling dozens of copies of my CDs every year. Uh,
That's great.
sometimes
Great
more
start.
than dozens. Uh,
Nice number.
but it's been CD Baby makes it very easy. You can order a CD, you can just download individual songs or whatever. They're very generous, especially on the downloads. They keep a fairly small percentage for themselves. It's very convenient. And when CDs were popular, I was actually supplementing my income pretty well. And then it went to downloads, and I was not making quite as much money. And then it went to individual song downloads, and that went down even further. And now it's streaming, and the pennies roll in every day. I make a few pennies every day, but it's usually not more than pennies.
And a few bits.
So,
You also have a website, which is very easy. It's winstonapple.com,
yes.
and all lower caps. And you can find information also on your website. Are you doing anything in your local area now, like gigs or anything that you want to tell our viewers about to come see? Or
The gigs, my favorite club to play in Kansas City closed down and is about to reopen. There's just not a lot of places to play where you can afford to take the band with you. And so I'm not trying to pull a Harry Nilsson. I was always fascinated that Nilsson never toured or performed live. He's an amazingly talented songwriter and performer. I love performing live, and fortunately, I enjoy playing solo now. I've also done tracks where I can play along with the videos, and that kind of got out of hand. At first I was playing solo and everything else was recorded, and then I decided to add the people that were doing solos, and then I decided a live drummer would be good, and before long we were only missing the bass player, the horn section, and some backing vocals. So and then the new album came along. The last one I recorded was pretty much solo. It's the only album I've ever done where there's nobody on it but me. And it's very stripped down. It's called Allow Me to Demonstrate, and it is those 8 songs I wrote in 6 days and a few other songs as well that came along as I was recording those. But I limited myself deliberately to acoustic guitar, piano, and a little kick drum once in a while. You know how they do the kick drum to go along with the folk music these days. Harmonica, and I did add a few harmonies here and there. But it's a very stripped down album, which we are now have been in the process. This is what we were doing before I ran for office. We're adding drums, bass. I've added pedal steel to a lot of those. Russ Weaver, a really, really good pedal steel player, lives just 5 minutes away from me. And absolutely, I read about him in the Kansas City Star that when touring bands come through Kansas City that have a pedal steel player, the pedal steel player often looks him up for a lesson.
Wow.
I'm thinking, if touring bands steel players are calling this guy for a lesson, that's the guy I want to use. And they were not wrong. He's really good. So I feel really blessed. There are some very, very talented musicians in the Kansas City area.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really easy to do really good recordings here.
So now the name of this is Just Let Me Demonstrate?
Allow me to demonstrate.
Allow me to demonstrate. I love the pun.
Yes. And it was sort of demo, like it's what I would used to have called demo versions of the songs that we did finally get to the band. So yeah, it was a deliberate pun intended.
Well, you know, I think everybody wants to hear these now.
Yes.
We've heard about them being channeled and how you just had to write them. So, and they can find them, at CD Baby and also on your website?
And thanks to CD Baby, and I have to say I am not litigious by nature, so Google and CD Baby are in no danger whatsoever. But Google's put the entire book up online. You can pretty well read. You can read the whole book if you don't mind sitting at your computer to do it. And CD Baby, and I know I checked some box somewhere that allowed them to do this, has put up, it's just a picture of the album cover, and the songs are playing, but they're playing in their entirety. No reason to give the songwriter or the artist any money whatsoever. You know, they put ads up along the bottom of them, and that money goes to CD Baby. And if they ever were to go viral, I'm sure that I would get a check for at least $20 or $30, if only a few million people would view them. So,
oh my gosh!
Yep.
It helps that I'm not in this for the money.
Yes.
It certainly does.
I do feel sorry for young people. I was able to earn a living, including supporting a wife and 2 children into my mid-30s as a songwriter and musician out of Kansas City.
Wow.
And I can't imagine too many young people can do that these days without a recording contract.
Yeah, it's sad.
And that's sad. It's very sad. But, you know, it's the law of supply and demand with digital recording. When I put my first album out, it was called A Musical Tribute to the Last of the Great Toadstool Madonnas. And I put that out in 1974 and recorded it and put it out myself. I wasn't patient enough to shop it to labels, just wanted to get it out. And it was almost unheard of for a local band or artist to have an album out.
Yeah.
It was very rare. And now these days there's 20 of them being released every day.
Yes.
Sure.
More than that, I mean, if you look at CD Baby on the international scale, they literally put out hundreds of albums a day. And so it's very hard to get noticed, very hard to break through the shuffle, just all of, you know, the people that are out there. But and I will tell you there's an interesting story behind the title of that first album, and it proved to be prophetic. One of the keys to earning a living as a musician in the late 60s, early to mid 70s was that we did not want weekends off. We wanted to play every weekend and pick up as many gigs through the week as we could.
Right.
And whenever I saw a weekend off coming, I would call up Swingtown, which was a very rough club in the Argentine district of Kansas City, Kansas. But they loved my band there. And they would cancel whoever else they had, if they had anyone already booked, and book us in anytime we would play there.
Wow.
There was a very large woman at Swingtown that sat at the bar with a beer in one hand and a cigarette in the other all night, every night, whenever we played there. there was a short, skinny guy who waited for a slow song, made a beeline to the bar every time we played a slow song. And she would go on the dance floor with him. He would bury his head in her ample bosom. His arms did not reach all the way around her. And she had her beer still in one hand and her cigarette in the other, looked bored to death. He looked as if he had died and gone to heaven. And so we nicknamed her the Barstool Madonna.
Oh,
And when I did that first album, it was with the sincere hope that I would never play Swingtown again. I changed Barstool to Toadstool, and there was the title, A Musical Tribute to the Last of the Great Toadstool Madonnas.
that's fantastic.
And I never played Swingtown again.
Oh.
But then one day, that lady showed up.
What a good character, Ken. Wouldn't she
Yeah.
be for a book?
Yes, good.
Yes.
Oh, gosh. I can just picture Tales from the Dewdrop Inn, Ken.
I can still picture both of them as if it were yesterday on that dance floor. And Swingtown was a rough club. We played there on Christmas Eve a couple of different times. One particularly noted memorable Christmas Eve. We played 4 sets between 8 and 12. We played our first set and 2 guys got in a fight. We ended our second set and about 3 or 4 guys got in a fight. We ended our third set and about 5 to 7, 8 guys got in a fight. We finished the night at midnight. I said, "Merry Christmas, everybody." The entire place broke out in a brawl.
Oh, my
Oh,
gosh.
There was
Let you come back?
always.
So much
They,
with peace on earth, goodwill to
Oh,
men.
oh
yeah.
man.
There was a woman in a miniskirt on top of a pool table swinging a pool cue like Davy Crockett at the Alamo. The stage was about 6 inches high with about a 3-foot wooden railing in front of it, and there was no way out of the club except through the crowd from the stage. There was a guy sitting on that railing who looked over his shoulder at me, reached down and broke a beer bottle and started to come towards me on the stage. This was in the days when the mic stands had a very big, heavy lead bass.
Yes.
Right.
I picked a mic stand up like a baseball bat, keeping a wary eye on him. He smiled, nodded, and took his beer bottle into the crowd.
I don't blame him. I would too.
I would too.
Gosh.
Thank goodness we had those mic stands back then.
Yeah.
Wow.
Came in handy. Gosh, I wish we had some more time, but we're running out right now. And Winston, personally, for me as a resident of the state of Missouri and my husband, we want to thank you so much. I know you're going to keep on going,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
you've just begun, and heck, your music's going to only enhance it even more, and we need more like you.
There's been some nice cross-referencing there because people have gone to winstonapple.com looking for political stuff, and that was appleformissouri.com. So I've gotten more new fans on my website than any other time, and it's just by accident. But no, I mean, I absolutely, it was my intention to take 2 or 3 days off after the primary on Tuesday, and I took some time off each day, but I couldn't stop thinking about what comes next. And really, the next chapter has already begun with me being on the Democratic National Committee.
Yes.
And I'm going to be working very hard to help Democrats get elected this November. And I will tell you, I'll let this secret out in the hopes that I may be playing more than I did. I have adopted a vampire strategy for performing live. You have to ask me. You have to invite me to bring my guitar. And then I will happily bring my guitar to any political gathering of any type. But I warn you, if I bring it, I will play it.
Good.
All right.
Good.
Is that a warning or a promise? That sounds like a
It's a
promise to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I did threaten people throughout the campaign that if I was not elected lieutenant governor, I would go back to music and put out one CD after another. So,
That may not have been a smart thing.
no,
I see a few people saying, well, geez, I don't want to lose his music.
right, right.
It's
Well, I'm going to keep juggling those things as best I
oh
can.
good. I hope you keep in touch with us, and I know you'll be in
Please do.
touch with Ken.
Yes,
And
actually, while we were talking, you might have seen I was kind of I was using my other computer screen to send you a message through your website.
All right.
yeah, fantastic.
Great,
Winston,
great.
thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And
Thank you for having me.
yeah, we appreciate you so very much. And guys, you've heard his music, and we're going to play a little bit more right now. So go out and buy it. You're
So
All
that's
right.
how we vote for him in the world of music.
That's
exactly.
it. Bye.
Exactly.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Take care, Winston.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you, Winston. Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Thanks.
Nice to meet you all.
Same here.
Uncle Milty and the Chicago boys have a very broad definition of socialism. When Uncle Sam plays Robin Hood, taking taxes from the rich to try to do something good for those in need. Pushing a new deal or a great society, he is a socialist. And you may be one too, if you support public schools or the minimum wage. You may be a socialist. If you want social security when you reach retirement age. You may be a socialist. If you are in favor of Medicare or Medicaid. You may be a socialist. And that's not what they want you to be. If you shrug when you read Atlas Shrugged, you may be a socialist. If you disagree with sweeping pollution under the rug, you may be a socialist. If you believe that poor sick children should get medical care and drugs, you may be a socialist. And that's not what they want you to be. Greed is great, greed is good. If you don't believe that, maybe you should take a long, hard look at yourself. Call up the shock doctors and get some help. If you believe in putting people ahead of profits, you may be a socialist. Or saving endangered species or protecting the environment. You may be a socialist. If you belong to a union or support them in any way, you may be a socialist. And that's not what they want you to be. If the Chicago boys ever get their way, all of these government programs will fade away. Wall Street gamblers will be free to play their games without referees. That might be bad news for the little people, people like you and me. But we don't really matter as long as we may be socialists. I may be a socialist. You may be a socialist. He may be a socialist. She may be a socialist. We may all be socialists. Yes, we all may be socialists. And that's not such a bad thing to be. No, that's not such a bad thing to be. That's not such a bad thing to be. much about it, Lord knows that every now and then everybody loses their head. Santa got a shotgun for Christmas. You know he liked to hunt the rabbits and squirrels. Till one Saturday night when he came home early, found his best friend there in bed with his girl. And just said, now shoot 'em up, cowboy. Shoot 'em down, dear. Don't you worry too much about it, Lord knows that every now and then everybody loses their head. She sang, now shoot 'em up, cowboy. Shoot 'em down, dear. Don't you worry too much about it, Lord knows that every now and then everybody loses their head. You can put away the birthday candles. Timmy won't be needing them anymore. He was needing to clean that his killing machine, but he dropped it and it went off when it hit the floor. Just say now, shoot 'em up, cowboy. Shoot 'em down, dear. Shoot 'em up, cowboy. Every now and then, everybody loses their head. Just say now, shoot 'em up, cowboy. Shoot 'em down, dear. Shoot 'em up, cowboy.
I know. More
Woohoo.
music. You know, I wish more and more of this type of music would come back because you're sending a message to people and it's for the
Mhm.
good of the world and the
Amen.
country. So
Mhm.
I'm glad to see it. You
Yeah.
know, I think a lot more of it. You know, Punky's been busy come just pacing in and out here. I had to say something though, Ken
Mhm.
and Carrie, wasn't it nice to have all of us together on a
Yes,
show?
I missed that.
Yes.
I really did.
And
I
we
I
really
should do
did.
more of that.
We should.
We should. We
We should.
absolutely
It
should.
was great. And I want to thank everybody who joined us
Oh, yes.
this evening. And listen, if you liked Winston, you liked us, you loved Punky, please share our show with other people.
Thanks.
We're on Vaughn
Absolutely.
Live TV, It Matters Radio. In fact, Ken, you're seeing this right now
Mhm.
at 3 p.m. Ken has another show tonight at 7 p.m. It's a spoken word guest, and we always have very interesting people there, and I think you'll just find that
No, no,
delightful.
we're talking 3 p.m. and 7 p.m.
Eastern Time,
Eastern Time.
U.S. Oh,
Yes.
Ken, I
Yes.
hear that you have somebody called Cosmo coming on the show tonight.
Oh, I think people are going to love Cosmo, but I don't want to talk too much about Cosmo, except let's just say that he is a very smart bird.
Yeah, you think Punky'd be jealous?
Well, Punky is jealous of anybody who gets attention, but we don't want to talk too much about Cosmo because we want to, folks, you want to meet Cosmo, really a very special guest, a real smart bird if ever I
Yeah,
met one.
yeah, I think you'll enjoy him. So I hope you can join us later tonight. And Carrie, thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
bringing us a wonderful guest.
Yeah.
No problem.
Different music, music we don't normally have on. And he was so versatile, so diverse, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I want to, before we leave, Carrie, can you tell them a little bit about our shows that we have every day?
You know, Monday through Saturdays, and this is at 7 p.m. Eastern,
Oh, I
we
wanted to
do.
say something real fast.
Oh, go ahead.
It's going to be Monday through Friday on the Euros. We have a,
Okay.
I didn't know if I told you, but we have a brand new show that we're going to start bringing to you on Saturday.
Okay.
It's called the International Top 10 Music. So,
Yes, that's going to be on Saturdays. Monday
yes.
through Friday, however, we want you to join us on Von TV Live at 7 p.m. Eastern and hear some fabulous Euro indie music. Now, the thing about this music, folks, is that you voted for it.
Mhm.
You brought these artists to our attention, and let me tell you, your voting has been out of this world. And Friday, what I really enjoy, is the top 20 Euro indie for the week before. And again, you voted. Who knows? Maybe a song you love got to be number one.
And I would get there because the people would vote for it. And that's
Exactly.
on at 7 p.m. Eastern
7 p.m.
Time.
Eastern.
Yeah,
Yes.
every Monday
And
through
and
Friday.
folks, the great thing about this show, Monday through Friday, is that the music is so varied.
Hmm.
You know, it is. You go on regular radio stations in the United States, and it sounds. I mean, they tell you they're playing different songs, but they all sound the same.
Hmm.
Whereas this is a show where you are really hearing, I mean, you can hear folk song, kind of sounding, country western sound, and then the next thing you might hear is rap,
Hmm.
and then a little bit further on heavy metal, and it's just a wonderful,
Country, yeah.
yeah, yeah, just a wonderful array of fabulous music.
Ah, and it's in different languages. A lot
Hmm.
of it's in English, but some of it you'll find in Italian. Um, that's in Spanish,
French, German,
French, German.
hmm
Yeah. So
and
I'm
American.
and
Because
American,
because
of
we
course.
don't really speak English here. Just
Yeah.
ask anybody from across the pond.
And they have some really unique music that you don't hear
Yes.
here. So
Mm.
Yes.
I hope you can join us on
Oh,
those
please
every
do.
day. Yeah. But anyway, I want to thank everybody for being here. And please check Winston Apple out. Come
Oh,
on, with a name like that, you got to check him out, right? An
Mm.
apple a day keeps the doctor away.
I was going to say, he's as American as apple pie.
That's
yes, he
right.
is. He absolutely is. He's fabulous.
And with that,
Okay.
folks, I think we're going to say goodbye. Okay, until next time, love from all of us. Bye bye,
Bye.
guys.
Pie.